Welcome back, witches. Last day of the month. Happy last day of June, heading into July. We are doing monthly goals updates. So I'm going to chat about my no spend year and review all of the books that I read in June. I am looking and feeling a little rough today because I am tired and wired. I had ice cream yesterday. Giant mistake. In case you didn't know, I completely cut out sugar in like mid-January. All kinds of sugar. I added sugar, regular sugar, fake sugars, whatever it is. I don't even eat fruit, but that's just because I don't like it. But no sugar in my diet to get rid of migraines, which absolutely has worked until yesterday. John talked me into it, decided to eat ice cream from Culver's, and that was a mistake because I woke up at 3 a.m. with a migraine. And so I am tired, but then had a whole bunch of coffee this morning to help me feel better about my migraine, which usually works. But so now I am exhausted from being up all night and wired because I had so much coffee. So we're going to power through. We're going to try to do it all in one take. Let's see how it goes. I wanted to update on June, though, because tomorrow, July, will start my round of like new goals, changed goals. If you remember that from last week, I decided to add a whole bunch of new goals because that seems like a good idea during a mid-year freakout. And those are going to start tomorrow. Two of the things that I said weren't going to change, though, were the things that I am tracking in this planner. This is from Little Inklings Designs, the Novel Companion Ultra. And I am tracking my no spend year. That is going to continue through end of 2024, and then changing it up a little next year. And I am going to continue on my quest of reading and tracking 100 or 200 books. And those are the books that I review here each month. So those two are staying. And then through tomorrow, I will be starting to incorporate some of those new goals that I talked about. So just wanted to update on those two. Starting with the no spend year, because that was the one that I told you guys that last week June was going to look way different because I failed at so many different things. So let's jump into exactly what that was. Of course, I spent money on bills as usual. I never go over that. Things that weren't fails or just part of my regular expenses. Groceries were $527.01. And that was a very high number. And that is something that I hope will look very different in June. I think we did in July. I think we did a lot of stocking up. There was a lot of just like grocery ones. There was a lot of snacky like foods on there. But stocking up on meat and things too were on there. And I am going to track that in July, reduce groceries definitely because we've got a freezer and pantry full of stuff. So absolutely need to use those things up. So I'm hoping to bring that number down in July. And I'm also going to track it based on what I'm eating. That's something that I used to do at the beginning of the year because John and I eat very different diets. And I was tracking what I was spending on my food. And I am curious about that, of how that's going. So I am going to just eat through what I have that's mine in the freezer. I don't think I eat anything that comes out of the pantry. So everything that's in the fridge and freezer, that's mine. So I want to eat all of those things and then start tracking exactly what I'm spending because I don't think I spend a lot on my groceries, but I would like a better idea of what it is I am eating and spending in a month. So I need to work on what I am using up in July. So hopefully that grocery bill will go down in July. I also spent on pets tracking $261.04, and that is for meds, food, and to get groomed. So I don't foresee that number like going down at all. We're kind of always in that range. Her meds alone are $143 a month, so that's not going to go down too much. Did spend on the landscaper again this month, $140 for weekly grass cutting, which is kind of how our house is. All these bungalows in Chicago, we have grass lawns. I hate lawns. Grass is stupid. I think it was Shellbizzle. I will link her down below that just did a video this month about how terrible grass lawns are, and I completely agree. But we, moved into this house that already had it, so it is what it is. So weekly grass cuts and trimming bushes and trees and things and generally fixing it up. $140. Spent $46.95 on gas. and I had to repurchase the witchwednesdays.com domain. I never know when that comes up. It just gets charged, and apparently it got charged $44.34, so that's fine. And then in gifts, I spent $155.35, and that is because my husband's birthday is on July 5th, so I already got everything. Now let's get into these failures of things that I was not allowed to spend on when I started this no spend year and had this idea. First of all was eating out, $64.51. Eating out was definitely on my things not to purchase, and that included like fast food, takeout, going out to eat. I had like a little bit of wiggle room for eating out with friends, and one of those was going out to lunch with my friend Betsy. But then there was another time of going out to eat with John as well, and that was one thing I was trying to avoid, so that was a fail. I spent $35. I don't know whether to put it under entertainment or parking. I spent $15. John and I went to the Halloween convention that they have every June in Rosemont here, and that was $15 for parking. And then in Chicago, it's called the Park Chicago app. So when you are someplace around that has street parking, you can pay for it on the app, and you have to like reload it with $20 every time that you use it. So that is what I did when I was parking on my day out with Betsy. And that is the last thing on here that's going to be a fail is part of my day out with Betsy. And that is that I spent $263.05 on wardrobe, which is crazy for me. But another goal of mine for this year was to work on diet, fitness, health, and specifically weight loss. And I did lose weight and then nothing fits. So Betsy and I spent a day going bra shopping. It's the most horrible experience ever, I have to say. I mean, I had fun going with her, and it was, good to have a buddy there that was suffering along with me. But one of the worst things, that shoe shopping, I just really like shopping in general. Like for clothes, it's not fun for me. Shopping for books, I can do all day long. I can spend hours in a bookstore, but clothing stores are just terrible. So yeah, that was buying like bras and underwear, and then it just spiraled into getting, I don't even know what else was on the list. Socks. I got a new t-shirt that I definitely didn't need. I don't know. I just blacked out and spent $263. That's outrageous. So yeah, I was not supposed to spend anything on wardrobe. I mean, it was kind of necessary because my clothes literally didn't fit anymore, but still, that's a lot. That was a lot. So those were my fails. A lot of fails. That was a lot of money. So we are getting back on the no spend train. One thing that I didn't spend on was books, though. That was another one from the beginning of the year that I was like, I am not buying books this year. I cannot. So at least that, stuck. However, let's talk about what came in and that I didn't spend on but still got. So first up, I got a little skeleton ring. You will see it in October. It's got little skeletons around the side and then like a little cubic zirconia in the middle. And we picked those up at the Halloween convention, and John got a Jason mask one. We're calling them our October wedding rings, but that's a lot of fun. So he bought that for me. And he also bought coffee. There was a coffee stand there, Coffee Shop of Horrors. I think they're based out of Florida, but they have horror themed coffees. They do have an online website and you can like order, so I will link them below if you want horror themed coffees. But they were doing a deal of like 3 different packs of coffee, so he got me those. And books, I did a book exchange, so I didn't have to pay for them, and they're not staying. So we had a community yard sale on June 1st. We do it every year in this neighborhood, and it's just like a whole weekend of all the houses around here if they want to participate in doing a yard sale. So since everybody's doing it, there's tons of people walking around, you make more sales. Well, my friend was doing it at her house as well, and she had books, and I had books, and we just exchanged that. We're like, well, we don't have to like bother paying each other. We're just going to do a book exchange. So I got 3 new books, 2 of which I've already read that will be on my book reviews, which were Mysteries of Thorn Manor and Fireborne. We'll talk about those in just a little bit. And then Dance of Thieves, which I have not gotten to yet. That was supposed to be my first read in June, and I just didn't do it. So it's going to be in July. So I have them, but they're not staying. The 2 that I read are already listed on Pango if you want them. If nobody buys them soon, I will just take them to like half price books or something. And the Dance of Thieves I'm going to read. So they're not staying in my collection, but I did get them this month. So those are all the things that came in. Those are all the ways that I failed. So yeah, that was quite a bit. Onto the books. In June, I read 16 books, 5,539 pages. 3 were books, physical books, 11 were ebooks, and 2 were audiobooks. I do not have a lot of audiobooks on my list this year. It's just not my usual form of reading. I had 0 1 stars, 2 2 stars, 7 3 stars, 5 4 stars, and 2 5 stars. And anything you'll see in my reviews in a minute, anything that was like half stars, I think I rounded down. So if it was 4.5 stars, I put it in the 4 category on this list. So let's get into all of the things that I read. I do want to say I have been flexing my DNF muscles. That is something that I want to do more of and like not waste my time with books that I'm not going to enjoy. So I did do that this year, or this month, shockingly. And I DNF'd, first of all, Court of Blood and Bindings. I think this was on Kindle Unlimited, and I started reading it, and I was just like, it's, you know, the typical fae romantic-y ones, but I was just not connecting with it at all, so I just let that go. And I DNF'd Beartown, which I think is going to be an unpopular opinion, but that has been really popular lately. Lots of people reading Beartown, and I thought it would be, you know, it's like small town, you know, in the north, everything's about hockey, and I went into it thinking maybe it'd be more like, you know, Mystery Alaska or something, but no, it's not. It's kind of like darker and more emotional, and I could get that from like the beginning pages that I read, and then I looked up, not like spoilers, but like what other people's reviews of it were, and they were like, yeah, it's kind of a heavy emotional like book, and I was like, no thanks, not for me. So yeah, skipped it. So I was proud of myself for DNFing. So the ones that I did read, let's start with the witchcraft books, as always. I don't think I need to chat about too many of them because I think most of them have already been on the podcast, so you already heard about it. And my 2 5-star reads of the month were both already on, and that was Jane Barlow's Be Your Own Shaman, and that was the herbalism book. So I have that here, and as you have a copy on my Pango store if you are interested. And it is a giant like coffee table book, fabulous, such great information, and the pages are just beautiful, all about the various herbs and using them in your physical, emotional, whatever healing journey, and really detailed but beginner friendly. So you have all the information that you need to be able to harvest them, make tinctures, and like use them in your healing process. But it's not so overwhelming that you have all of this information and you don't even want to get started because doing one thing seems like it's going to take you weeks and weeks. This is very user-friendly, beginner-friendly, has all the information about decoctions and making oils and how you would use them, exact dosages and everything. So really enjoyed this one, 5 stars. And then the other one also about plants was by Camden Cornell, The Tameless Path, already on the podcast as well, about the invasive species, or, you know, weeds, we call them weeds, and all about that, like they're used in North America, and then how you can like find them and actually use them within your practice. And that was another one that was 5 stars, and then different, obviously, plants than what are in Be Your Own Shaman. So both of them were really great. I had a fun time reading those, and herbalism just appeals to me in general. That is one of my, you know, favorite witchy topics. So not surprised that I gave both of those 5 stars. And the other one that I read that I gave 3 stars was The Witch's Book of Spells by Lindsay Squire. And this one comes out on August 20th. I got an arc of this one. If you're familiar with Lindsay Squire's work, this is right along that same path. She did like the Natural Witch of the Forest Guide to Natural Magic and a couple other ones. And I think all of them I sort of give in the 3-star range. They're very beginner friendly, pretty pictures, like those ones that sort of are sitting on the bookshelf at Barnes and Noble to draw you in to the idea of witchcraft. So sort of that like pop culture-y, like standard book of spells. I did think that this one was more personal than her previous works. So previous works are just like, here are the different moon phases, here are the different tarot cards and basics on how to use them and start reading. And this was more like spell work, so it did seem more personal, like spells that she picked out, like reading her own grimoire. But there were definitely a lot of options all across the board of types of spells. But I do think, like, since it's geared towards beginners, that there were a lot of supplies that were necessary. So if a beginner was going to pick this up and start like working through it, and they had like a bunch of different spells that they wanted to do, it's not as many repeat supplies, and there's not like a list of like, if you don't have this, like try this. So I think if a beginner were to jump in and like do everything, they might not know enough information about substitutions and using what they already have. So it would require a lot of supplies and tools to get through all of the spells in here. So just not my favorite, but decent if you have, maybe like a teenager getting interested in spell work. They're all pretty simple. So I gave that one 3 stars. On to the fiction reads of the month. I had a much better month this month than I did in May. May were a lot of disappointing reads. This one, not so much. So starting out with Mysteries of Thorn Manor. Like I said, it grabbed from my friend, and as you can see, it is just this tiny little novella. And this is in that same world. It's a little follow-up to Sorcery of Thorns, which I gave 5 stars. It's one of my favorite books. And this is just follow-up a couple months later of the characters. And it was cute. It was really fun to revisit this world. I gave it 3.5 stars. It definitely leaves room to continue the series. She has not said whether or not she's going to do more books in the series. It was just a standalone fantasy. But it was sweet to revisit these characters. Not like a favorite like the original book was, but fun little novella to pass the time. I also read Wildcard by Marie Lu. That was the follow-up in the duology to Warcross. Warcross was better. This one I only gave 3 stars. It was nice to get like an ending to the story, but it really did not have a plot like the first one did, and we didn't spend as much time in the virtual reality video game, which was like the whole point and like the fun part of the first book. So not as fun. I will read more by Marie Lu. I have Legend on hold at the library. It should come up sometime this week, and like the next person on the list for like the ebook copy of it. And everyone says that one is her better series. So definitely going to read it because I like her as an author. I just didn't love this one as much as the first one. And then, like I mentioned, I also did Fireborne. I put a poll on my Instagram of like which one to start with in June, and Dance of Thieves won, and I had every intention, but then like Fireborne just grabbed my eye, and I was like, you know what, I'm starting with dragons. And I'm glad I did. I gave it 4 stars. I had never read this series before. This came out in 2019. Yeah, 2019. And it is political dragon fantasy. If you like Fourth Ring, read Fireborne, basically. Less like romance. There's no smuttiness in this. So I like the more political side, the more fantasy, less romance part of it. So I had a very good time with Fireborne. I won't go too much into the plot because I know it's an older one, but we are following 2 main characters who are both at this Dragon Rider Academy. And they bonded with their dragons from a young age. They were both orphans, so they were raised together, and now they are finishing out their last years at this Dragon Rider Academy, and they're both in a competition to move up in the ranks, and whoever like wins the competition is going to be basically the general of the Dragon Riders, and whoever comes in second will be their second. So we are following along their 2 journeys and figure out how they became orphans, how they became dragon riders. We take a look at like their friendship, possible budding romance. They're very 2 different backgrounds and how they became friends anyway. And then what is happening with this political like potential uprising. Of course, there is conflict with a neighboring country, and it's thought that maybe they have dragons too, which would put them at a disadvantage. So all the politics coming together in this one and made for a very good read. I'm excited to continue the series. I definitely will. I have not put I think there's 3. I have not put the second one on hold yet because I have some other things to get through, but I will absolutely return to this. Next was Birthmarked by Kara M. O'Brien, and I only gave it 3 stars. Did not love it as much as I thought that I would. This was a good premise, but fell off towards the end, and I have no desire to continue in the series, even though it left everything on a cliffhanger. But this is where it's the like YA dystopia theme. So we're following this young girl right after her parents were both captured, taken into this like walled city that they live outside of, and she takes over her mother's job being a midwife to the babies. And the first couple of babies that are born every month are automatically turned over to the city. So that is her job. If she has one of these babies that is, I think it's the first 3 that are born in a month, she immediately takes them away from the mother and marks them with little tattoos on their ankle and sends them off to the city. They're raised in the city. The townspeople are told that they have really great lives, they're adopted, and they're given a choice when they're teenagers if they want to return out into these villages or if they want to remain in the city, but none of them have ever come back. So she continues on with that until she finds out that her parents who were taken have been charged with something, and they are going to be sentenced to death. So she has to find a way to get into the city and figure out what happened and save them. So she has to sneak in because there's no way to get into this walled city. It's all guarded. So all about the story of how she gets in, how she is going about trying to find her parents, find allies, find out what is happening with these babies, find out what happened to her 2 older siblings who were part of the children who were taken to live in the city, and find out why the city needs to take these kids in the first place. So I thought that it was a very interesting premise, and it did like started out strong, but I just didn't like the plot kind of dragged, and then I just didn't love like where it was going. So not for me. I read the arc of We Did Nothing Wrong by Hannah Jane. This doesn't come out until the end of the year, but I only gave it 2 stars. It is a typical YA thriller where we're following one girl. Her best friend goes missing in the middle of the night. She knows a little bit more than she's letting on, and they're trying to find her, trying to find out if she was killed, if she was kidnapped, if she's just hiding out to make everybody scared. So typical YA thriller, but it read too young and too repetitive. So I just did not like it. It was only 304 pages, but it could have been way shorter. So did not love that one. One I gave 3.5 stars was a YA mystery called The Lies We Conjure by Sarah Henning. This one comes out in September. And it was slow to get into, but then it absolutely sped up. And I enjoyed it once it did. It was a fun take on witches and magic. So I love when that comes up in my reads. And we follow 2 girls who are approached at a Ren fair. So they're speaking in, a British accent. And this woman says, "You 2 look just like my granddaughters. I need you to come." And they're currently in London and they're not coming back. But I have a dinner party with my friends and I want to show off my granddaughters. So I need you 2 to come and pose as my granddaughters and speak in those English accents, and I will pay you $2,000. And like when I first read it, and they like jumped on it, and they were like, "Okay, fine, we will meet you at this crazy old lady's mansion, and we're going to pretend to be your granddaughters." And at first I was like, who does that? But then I was like, would I accept $2,000 to pretend to be somebody's granddaughter for a dinner party? I'm like, yes, I would. And they are like 17 and 18, so I'm like, yeah, no, I can see it. So I then had fun with that. At the dinner party, the woman who hired them disappears. The owner of the mansion estate that they are at is murdered, and then the mansion shuts down and they're locked in, and they have to figure out who murdered her in order to get free. And these 2 girls realize, oh crap, this is all magic. We're surrounded by witches and we don't have any powers, and they don't know that. They think that we are witches in this same realm because they think that we're these 2 granddaughters that they haven't seen since we were kids. So they don't know that these 2 don't have magic. So they're trying to just survive, get through the world, try to make allies with the younger witches, the grandchildren of the witch who died, and figure out what happened. So I liked where the story ended up going, and I had a good time with it. And the witch aspect was fun because they are different. Each family is like a different type of witchcraft. So these 2 are supposed to be death witches. There's elemental witches, celestial, blood magic. So I liked all of the different takes on how the different families had different types of magic. So that comes out September 17th. So if you need a quick YA mystery read that will be fun in the fall and very witchy, I do recommend that one. 2 that I can skip over relatively quickly. I reread The Maze Runner by James Dashner. A classic reread. This came out in 2009, and I think I hadn't read it since then, and I just felt like it. It's a 3-star. I think I liked it better like the first time when I read it and I was younger, but it was still a good time. I think everybody knows what Maze Runner is, so I don't need to, I think, go through what the plot of that was, but perhaps should not have read it during the hottest week of the year. Maybe I would have had a better time with it. And also the Wilde Trials, I don't have much to say on it. That doesn't come out until January of next year. YA mystery thriller, 3.5 stars. Nothing amazing, but I do enjoy a good private school competition setting. So she's graduating from this very elite private school out in the woods, and they have a competition for 10 participants at the end of the year. If you enter the competition, you have to survive 2 weeks in the wild, and there's different trials that you have to compete, and the winner gets a big cash prize, and even if you're not a winner, you don't have to take your finals. So that appeals to a bunch of 18-year-olds. But of course, things start happening. She's being targeted. Somebody's blackmailing her. So fun little mystery thriller read. Not anything like too amazing, but I did give it 3.5 stars. So obviously I had a good time reading it. One that I loved, 4 stars, was Heist Royale by Kavion Lewis. This comes out in November, and it is the follow-up to Thieves Gambit. It is a YA mystery thriller featuring Ross Quest and her family. They are all thieves. In the first book, she is part of this competition where she's contacted by this organization, and it's very rich and powerful people who basically, think like conspiracy theories, like Masons and Knights Templar and Illuminati and all of that nonsense. It's similar to that, where this giant organization can grant you any wish you want if you win the competition, and it's all about stealing various things. So that was a great first read, and this second one, Heist Royale, really held up. It comes out in November. It's a lot of fun to go back to the world, go back to the same characters. She's working for this organization now, along with her former friend turned possible love interest turned nemesis, and now we're back and working with him. Is he still the nemesis? Is he going to go back to love interest? So that part was cute. Seeing all of the same characters, the friends that she made, dealing with the complicated relationship she has got with her mother and the rest of her family. All of that was just as good in this second follow-up as it was in the first one. It's not always easy to do a sequel in a book like this, because that competition aspect and introducing a world is so much fun in the first one, and then to keep that same idea going in the second one doesn't always work out as well. You get a little bored with those sorts of plots, but not here. This one was really good. So that comes out November 12th. Definitely pick it up if you read Thieves Gambit. Not much to say on Six Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. I gave it 3. That is a standalone, a little novella that's on Kindle Unlimited that goes with that Serpent in the Wings of Night series, that vampire romantasy series. This is a little novella. You could read it by itself, or the characters appear in, I think it's the second book, and then the third book in that trilogy comes out later this year. So I decided to just pick up the little novella and see what was going on. So it was cute, perfectly fine, interesting take on the relationship, but know that those characters don't play a huge role in the second book. So if you really like them and you liked their little love story, they do appear in the second book, but not a huge role. So not too much to say on that one. I read Royal Blood by Amy Carter. This came out in last year, 2023. And this is What a Girl Wants with Amanda Bynes meets murder mystery. So we have this girl who knows that her father is the King of England, but she grew up in America, and he has another daughter with his wife. She was born out of wedlock to an American woman. So she knows that, and he's been, financially taking care of her. But she's been at boarding school, gets kicked out of boarding school, and his butler brings her to England instead because they don't know where else to send her. She's about to turn 18, and then she won't have to be under his control and influence anymore because she thinks her dad hates her. So she ends up in England, and it turns out her dad doesn't hate her, wants her to be a part of the family. So he's slowly going to introduce her to English society. So it's literally what a girl wants. But of course, right at the beginning, somebody dies, and they think that she was a part of this death. So it's the investigation into what actually happened, who's trying to frame her for this death, and just her trying to navigate the pressures of being the king's illegitimate daughter. So it was good. I gave it 4 stars. I liked it. There is a follow-up, and I don't know that I will read that one. I don't know that I liked it like that much to continue on what's going on. And I know that the second one ends on a big cliffhanger and the third one's not out yet. So I don't know that I want to go down that route just yet, but maybe in the future. We're approaching the end here, I swear. 2 more books. First, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I have not read that. That came out in 2018, so late to that one, but it was a 4-star read, just as good as people have been saying. It starts out sweet. We are following the character of Rin, and she comes from a poorer town. You have to test into these academies. She pushes herself, doesn't have the education, but studies and memorizes all the books and tests into the very best academy for training and education and soldiers that you can get into. So she wins and gets in and it doesn't have to pay. That's like the purpose of her going to this school. So it starts out like, I thought it was YA. It's not. But it starts out that way. And so I was like, oh, okay, like YA fantasy, good. Starts out like very Harry Potter, gets dark real fast. And it's like showing her going through the academy, working with a particular teacher to like specialize in something, her unique like talents, and reaching out to the deities. This instructor that she has really believes that these deities exist. She doesn't. He thinks that you can channel like their power and talk to them. She doesn't. So it's all about her training in that. And then of course, eventually, since it is a war college, they do end up going to war. There's some attacks, and then it follows the story of her getting through that, their first experience with war, and everybody that she went to school with, and it gets dark. Read some trigger warnings for this book, but it was really good. That is something that another one that I am absolutely going to continue on. I don't know when, because that is 545 pages, so they are like long books, but I do want to continue the series because this was a really great one. And ending, just finished it yesterday. This was an arc as well. It comes out October 1st, and that is Heir by Saba Tahir. And this is a new book in the Ember in the Ashes quartet. So that came out a while ago. It's fantastic. If you have not read that quartet, so good. So this is her newest that is going to come out, like I said, October 1st in that YA fantasy, same world. It is 20 years after the events of the last book in that original quartet, and we are following the descendants of the characters that appeared in that series. So I can't say too much on the plot because it will give away what happened in Ember in the Ashes, so I can't say too much. If you still want to read that would not be a spoiler. So if you haven't read those 4, definitely read those 4 and then get excited for Heir coming out. I gave it 4.5 stars, but I feel like maybe I'm just being really picky, and I don't know why I don't give more things 5 stars. Like maybe I should, because maybe this was 5 stars. Like looking back, I just finished it yesterday, but I gave it 4.5 because it was a little bit slow to start. And I didn't have quite as much love for the characters as I did in the original series. But then it really picked up. And you get the point of view of 3 different characters. And in the beginning, up until about like the 40% mark, you really don't know how their stories are going to like all come together. But once it does and it starts to make sense, it's brilliant and such wonderful writing, such a great author. So highly recommend this one. The main characters I really loved. There's one, Saoirse, love her, my favorite. Ends on a cliffhanger for her. So now I'm going to have to like wait forever for the second. I think this is going to be a duology. I can't remember. But I'm going to be waiting forever for that one, and I'm sad about it. But I don't know how it's only going to be a duology because I have so many unanswered questions. So that will be interesting to find out. But I love Saoirse. There's another main character, Quill, who I did not love as much because he's written is like supposed to come across as like this very like guarded, untrusting character. He's got a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. Everything that's happened in his life has, made him like not able to like trust people. But then he like falls in love super fast. So I don't understand. With multiple characters in the book without giving anything away. So I'm like, how do you think you're so untrusting? But then you like fall in love really fast, my man. So I don't know. But didn't love him as much. I think there's a lot of potential for the side characters. I didn't love them as much, but I like as they started to get like a little bit more story, I was like, I could see how potentially I would really enjoy them, but I needed to know more about them, and they just weren't focused on as much, which makes sense because we had 3 different POVs to hear from, so not as much time to be able to spend on side characters. But I think it was just as great as that Ember in the Ashes series. This is a great addition to it. So I hope that you will get your hands on it when it comes out. I got the arc over on NetGalley, which was fantastic. I was very excited when that one came through. And one of my goals, obviously, was to clear my NetGalley. I talked about that in my goals video, that I need to clear NetGalley and I need to clear Kindle Unlimited. So I have successfully cleared NetGalley. Read everything, wrote all the reviews. I have nothing pending. So I need to not request anything. I just need to like not even go on and look. But I wasn't going to request Heir, and I was like, how can I not? And I'm so glad that I did, and it came through because that was fantastic. I really should just give it 5 stars. What am I thinking? So those were all of my reads. And for the month of July, there are a couple I'm looking forward to. The first, The Grandest Game, comes out on July 30th. So I don't think I'm going to get it and read it on July 30th. It'll probably be an August read, but excited that that's coming out. In case you haven't heard of that one, it is in the Inheritance Games world by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And it's after the events of the first 4 books. I think it might come in between 3 and 4, but this is, continuing on in that story. So I love her and her writing. So I'm excited to see what she does with that one. And then I'm going to pop over to Kindle Unlimited and get some things done there. So give me your opinions. These are all on there. Let me know if you have read any of them. I think my entire list is fantasy. So there is Umbral Storm, The Everking, Beneath Black Sails, and Jade City. All of those are on my Kindle Unlimited, need to read them. So let me know if you loved or hated any of those, if you've read them, if you think that I should skip them, or if there's any that you think I should prioritize, then do let me know, because I thought all of those sounded interesting, and I would like to see what I should prioritize. And I am going to do Dance of Thieves. I'm starting it today. So that one will get done. And then I have the Will of the Many waiting as well. Hopefully I get to both of those. And also this month, the Llewellyn Almanacs come out for 2025. Do I need to be reading those? No. Am I going to? Probably. I like to plan ahead. I don't know that I'm going to be doing any planning for 2025 via the almanacs, but I love when they come out, and I love looking at all of them. And my local witchcraft store always gets them in stock, so I could just go there and flip through them instead of buying them, because I'm not supposed to be buying anything. I don't know if I can stick to that when it comes to the almanacs. We shall have to see. But okay, that was my list. I think this was a long one of my reviews for the month. Let me know if you read anything that was on my list, if you agree, and let me know what I should prioritize for July. That is everything for my wrap up for this month. And like I said, starting the end of next month, the monthly wrap up and goals is going to look a little bit different, because I added some goals, took out some goals. Still going to have the updates on the reading and the no spend, but I think there will be updates on other things as well. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you all in the next one.